Human error or cyber attack? The Federal Aviation Administration blamed a corrupt computer file for the system outage that caused the halting of all U.S. flights last week. But one cybersecurity expert believes the outage could have been a cyber attack. Appearing on this week's episode of The Global Lane, cybersecurity expert Eric Cole says that outages occurred both in the U.S. and Canada on the same day, and he believes the incident is highly suspicious.
These systems have redundancy. They have backups. They have ways to be able to recover. So when I hear that there was a database error, and then as you said, there were two different systems that went down on the same time, I'm like, okay, saying it was human error keeps everyone calm. But in reality, it really does sound like a cyber attack and that something went wrong that was unplanned for.
Okay, if it was a cyber attack, who may be responsible? I mean, right away we think Russia because of the war against Ukraine, the Canada and the U.S. are supporting.
Yeah, I mean, Russia lately has always been on the list, but we also forget that China is also a big target, especially when it comes to critical infrastructure. And there's also a lot of freelance cyber adversaries that are out there that are really big on ransomware, extortion, and things like that. So from my standpoint, it sounds like what we call a test attack, where they wanted to test and just see how vulnerable the systems were, whether they could get in, and how long it would take them to recover. So to me, the critical part for the FAA right now is to really figure out if it was a cyber attack, to figure out how they got in and make sure they fix it, because this sounds like it's going to be one of many attacks in our future.
The FAA software, as you know, is 30 years old. Why is it at least 6 years away from being updated, Eric?
When you're dealing with critical infrastructure, like air traffic control, utilities, and even hospitals, uptime availability is critical. And anytime you patch or update a system, there's a chance it could crash. I'm sure you've had it at your home when you did an update or they said, oh, it's just a basic patch. All of a sudden things don't work and things stop operating. So it sounds bizarre, but the more critical a system, the less we update it, the less we patch it, and the more vulnerable it becomes.
So how likely then is another shutdown or cyber attack, not only against an antiquated FAA computer network, but other critical government networks? Just how vulnerable are they?
Unfortunately, they are very vulnerable for that reason you said. These are old systems. They're not typically updated. They're not typically patched. And the big problem is they're starting to be interconnected. And that's where the problem comes in. These systems were designed and built to be what we call in cybersecurity an air gap, which means completely isolated from any other system or the internet. But what's been happening over the last year or two is they're interconnecting these to the internet and other systems to make them easier to use. And because of that, this to me is just the beginning. And this year we're going to see a lot more of these attacks happening because of that.
Did that happen with remote work because of the COVID shutdowns?
That was one of the big drivers where this whole work from home or work from anywhere, now all of a sudden you had systems that needed to be accessible if somebody wasn't in the office. There were systems that needed to be monitored, like the FAA systems, when somebody is not in one of their secure facilities. So yes, that was the trend that started it. And instead of us weaning away from that, now that people are coming back in the office, we're actually doing more and more interconnectivity, which is great for ease of use, but is one of the worst possible things we can do for cybersecurity.
So how true is it then, I want to go back to this, that most Russian hackers are concerned about extorting money from companies, schools, other networks, pledging to shut them down and destroy their networks if they don't pay up, and then Chinese hackers who may be more interested in stealing secrets and sensitive information?
That's very spot on. We can usually guess with a high reliability who's doing it based on those symptoms. And then we have to remember that Iran, Venezuela, North Korea are all recognizing the value of cyber attacks and how vulnerable our systems are. So they're also starting to launch these attacks for the same reasons. Most of them tend to be more monetarily driven, China is really the one that's focused a lot on intellectual property theft, but there's a lot more players that are targeting us just because of how easy and simple it is to do.
And Eric, I can't let you go without asking you about TikTok. ByteDance, the Chinese company that owns TikTok, employs more than 100 Chinese Communist Party members. So there are many security concerns about this social media app, and the CCP is mining user information, data for nefarious purposes. So just how risky is it to have this app on your phone?
To me, it's very risky, and I know a lot of parents look at me or push back going, Eric, it's videos. How harmful could a video be? But what they're missing is it's not the video. It is the access to your device. TikTok has access to your device, your data, your information, your microphone, your camera, all those factors. So it really is now a built-in spying tool that they can access information and details outside of the videos. And the other factor is it also can track personal behavior. Imagine if a government can track US citizens' behavior for 15, 20, 30 years and build a database of predictability. That's a huge vulnerability to the country. So if you fast forward TikTok 20, 30 years from now, this creates a huge national security problem.